I want to talk today about trust. The most important thing I can think of in a relationship of any kind, in a relationship with a partner, in a relationship with our children, in our relationship with our business, with money, with a boss, with any type of relationship you can think of is either alive or dead because of trust. It is foundational, it is important, and it is fragile as hell. And honestly, very hard to come by in 2025. I mean, I don't know who else feels just weirded out and honestly, even a wave of grief where I don't even know in my algorithm now if a video is real or if it's AI generated. I was telling my husband the other day, oh my God, babe, did you see? I saw this video of this baby on the porch and this bear came up to the porch and then the cat jumped at the bear and saved the baby's life. And he was like, yeah, I've seen stuff like that. It's totally AI generated. And I'm like, I hate this. What the heck? You don't even know what you can trust anymore. Similar with my husband the other day, I was texting him and I forget completely what it was about now, but he was like, did you write that text or did ChatGPT write that? And I was like, it was me, but I can see why you thought that might have been ChatGPT. So it's just a weird new world and time that we're living in, and trust feels more fragile than ever. I don't know about you, but if I imagine we were in a room right now and there was a big crowd of people and I asked you to raise your hand if you've ever had trust broken in a relationship, or if you've been burned by a friend or a boss or an online coach, or if there's been any rupture of trust, everyone's hands would shoot up in so many years. We could stay here for days. We could have a whole retreat just talking about the number of times our trust has been broken. So I've said trust a million times now. Let's get on the same page about a definition. When I say trust, what do I mean? Really, I just mean, at least from a somatic perspective, is trust is the felt sense of safety and settledness in your soul and nervous system when in the presence of another person. So it really does come down to the biochemistry of, okay, signs that I'm in a state and energy of trust is my breath is regulated, my heartbeat is regular, my pupils aren't dilated and bracing for impact or danger. I'm not scanning or hypervigilant. There's this calm, present presence, felt sense of presence in the body and able to connect, ability to experience intimacy with another human. Okay. And so conceptually, right, that's just the definition. But when I think of how fragile it is right now, our deepest wounds, especially when it comes to a relationship, this is what I want to dive into today in today's episode, is what causes it to feel so fractured, and then what the heck do we do to repair it? Because so many people are giving blanket statements and band-aid tips and advice of how to repair trust, and it's keeping so many couples spinning their wheels and stuck. And it's been incredible over my own journey to be able to finally find what works when it comes to the biggest ruptures you can think of in relationships and what actually repairs them. So we can all agree that our deepest wounds are in relationships. Our deepest trauma, deepest ruptures come from relationships where someone lied to us or cheated or betrayed or abandoned or abused. And that felt sense of safety that maybe was there initially all of a sudden disappeared. And for some of us, we've been looking for it for decades, still unable to find that and repair that initial original sense of trust. So our deepest wounds are in relationships, but so is our deepest healing. And honestly, it's the later part of our life that we get smarter, we get wiser, we've embodied some wisdom to see, okay, these are my safe people. This is where my healing will blossom and take place, is in these spaces. And it is rare as hell. And so therefore more precious now more than ever to come by a person or a space where I feel safe enough to heal, safe enough to let my hair down and really speak my authentic truth and show you all of me and not feel like I need to brace or protect for a blow, an imminent rug being pulled out from underneath my feet. You know, I also tell my clients, even when they come into my space, never, whether it's a client call, new client journey, a masterclass I'm throwing, a retreat, I never, ever, ever say the very catchphrase that many throw out there. This is a safe space. You can share whatever you want here. This is a safe space. And the reason I don't say that is because I actually cannot determine your safety. You're the only one who can decide how safe you feel. If you feel safe at all, you're the only one that can sense trust in your body. So what I do tell my clients is I go to all above and beyond extremes to create as much relative safety as I can when you're in my presence, when you're in my container. But ultimately, that's for you to decide how much you want to open up, how fast you want to open up. And I call it turtling. Whenever somebody's new to the Root to Rise community, I say, yeah, I invite you to turtle. What turtles do is they poke their head out of their shell, they look around, they see if it's safe, and if they need to, they pull back in and go back into their shell. And then maybe they scope the scene out again, maybe keep their head out a little longer next time, realize, wow, like no predators. I actually am safe here, but then go back into their shell because that's their comfort zone. So I encourage women to do that too in my presence or on the Root to Rise journey is go ahead and turtle. There is no shame in isolating, in hiding, all these things that women can feel funny about, like, oh, I feel bad, I've been isolating or not showing up to calls. I say, no, that is the very wise, intelligent way that your nervous system processes building trust. And it starts from infancy. When you see a baby, right, from the jump, will try to latch to the mother, whether breastfeeding worked or didn't, right? There's this skin to skin contact that the baby is craving from the jump. And as the baby grows and gains independence, it will try to crawl away, but then it'll look over its shoulder and usually come back and then crawl further next time. Look over their shoulders, mom's still there, come back. Right? So it's this branching out, meeting its edges of independence and outside of the comfort zone, but then knowing my home base is right there, right? Caregiver, mom, whoever, I can go back to base. And so that process, that turtling ends up continuing, and there can be trauma that interrupts the expansive natural growth of where healthy independence can go and healthy attachment. But in an ideal world, right, just that metaphor, that picture of that little baby then becomes a toddler who's able to walk on its own and walk further. And one day a teenager who gets a license and drives out on their own on the road, which my kids are not at that age yet. I'm like, I'm not even ready for that. But they have gotten on the school bus, and that was so weird the first day that I let them just be taken away on this giant yellow metal rectangle. There goes my kids. Okay, I'm just gonna hope they come back. So anyway, anyone who's on a healing journey, you get to still act out the same thing. It's your own process of building trust within your own system of how far can I go before needing to return to the comfort zone and then branch out a little further the next time. And so when trust is broken, especially in love, some of the typical advice that's given is go to therapy, go to couples counseling, read this book, listen to this podcast, talk it out. All of these things are all of the mainstream modalities, first line of defense pieces of advice that are thrown out there. Yet if you're anything like me and anyone in my community, we've tried all of that for some of us decades. And where it leaves us at best is feeling like we're still spinning our wheels, like we've tasted trust. We've had moments of it, maybe in session, but then we're fighting with our partner as soon as we leave the couples therapist office. Or at worst, we feel like we're more traumatized than where we began. The rupture is even greater after all the trying to talk it out and fix it and all the attempts to heal. And so my hope for you today is to leave with some practicals. And this is such a deep, complex topic. If you have specific questions, you can always DM me on Instagram, Becky_Aste. But I want to give you the keys, the foundational concepts and practicals of how to repair trust in love when it's broken. So trust, again, is the felt sense of safety and settledness in your body that allows connection, vulnerability, and presence. It's when your spirit is at rest and your nervous system is in regulation. Trust is hijacked. The first thing that's hijacked by relationship trauma. So things like abuse, abandonment, addiction, absence, betrayal, just to name a few, trust is hijacked. It feels like it disappears in an instant. Trust is not repaired by talking with your partner endlessly about every little detail that happened. It's not repaired by snooping on him, checking his messages, checking his emails, trying to control him. It's also not repaired by ultimatuming the hell out of your husband, because all of these things really keep you hooked in your trauma by outsourcing your power to his behavior. The hypervigilant scanning, the checking on him, the putting a device on his car, tracking his location. All of this is taking you out of your power and saying, I can only feel trust if and when he behaves fill in the blank XYZ way. Now, the thing with this is I have worked with so many clients who have been through really deep relationship trauma and rupture in past relationships, and now they're married to a super secure, healthy, present, really Prince Charming type of man. And every single time, those types of clients are like, but I can't trust him, even though he's given me literally zero evidence on paper to doubt that he is a trustworthy man. My body has kept the score of everything it has lived from past relationships. And so that case study that I've seen so many times is proof that whether you're trying to repair trust in a relationship where trust was ruptured, or in a brand new relationship where it's actually a clean slate, but you've carried some stuff from old wounds. Either way, trust is not rebuilt only dependent on the other partner's behaviors. That's actually the last line of defense. When we talk about repairing trust, where we begin before anything else, first and foremost, is rebuilding trust begins with your relationship to yourself. First, we need to repair the relationship to ourselves after way too many counts of self-abandonment, typically. Way too many counts of, whoa, I didn't speak up and speak my truth. I didn't listen to my intuition. I questioned myself. I doubted myself. I didn't protect myself. I didn't advocate for myself. I left myself in a fawn response to keep him happy. I pushed down my desires in order to keep the peace. And so before anything else, we need to start with rebuilding trust with ourselves if we're going to attempt to rebuild trust in the relationship. And so what that might practically look like is, at least in my world, right? We do somatic healing. It's learning to find safety again in your own system, in your own body, learn how to, the catchphrase, right, that everyone's throwing out there right now is come home to yourself. But what that can look like practically is, let's say you're in a fawn response where you're ruminating, intrusive thoughts, just focused and fixated on how can I make him happy because I'm afraid he's upset with me, or I'm sensing disconnection, or I'm afraid he's going to leave me. And so when in a fawn response, what we need to do is really find safety in our own system. And your work in those moments is in stillness rather than reaching toward him. So what can soothe you in that moment? One thing is hand over your heart and just speaking self-compassionately to yourself. The other is putting a hand on your low back. You can do this with babies too. Watch how quickly they get soothed and slowed down. If you put your hand right on your low back where your kidneys are, this is close to your root energy center, your root nerve bundle, which is connected to your sense of safety. Another thing you can do is just simple rocking. You think of a baby who's upset, who's crying, that we rock them intuitively and naturally, and then we think we're too grown up and sophisticated and mature for that. But this is such a potent nervous system reset, is just being able to gently rock back and forth right in your seat, or lay on your side body. You might lay in fetal position on the ground on a hard floor. Gently rock. We're not trying to do any fast movements. It's really the slower the better. The more unambitious and lazy in our movements, the better. Some other things in those moments is being able to ask yourself, what is it that I would wish from my partner right now? If I could wave a magic wand and ask him to soothe me and make everything feel better, what would that be? And some clients will say something like, I wish you would just come over and hug me and say, I know you're holding a lot, but you're doing an amazing job, and I love you and I'll never leave you. That's what a lot of us really just want to hear and receive in a fawn response. And so the practice for us, if trust has been ruptured and we're repairing first with ourselves, is to literally give ourselves that. We might literally wrap our arms around our own body the power of physical touch, especially from self in a moment like that. And I might tell myself, Becky, I see you're holding a lot and you're doing a damn good job, better than you're giving yourself credit. And Becky, I love you. And I know I've left you in the past many times, but right here, I am with you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay with you through this, and letting whatever emotions arise, really talking to yourself, making that an opportunity for intimacy and integration. And at first, I will tell you, if you're not used to that, it's going to feel foreign. It's going to feel like, what the hell am I doing? This is where coaching and community can really be transformative in helping you repair with yourself. Okay, so that's step number one. The key to repairing broken trust and love is beginning with repairing trust with yourself. Number two, trust you need to rebuild by also repairing your relationship to your God. Now, I say God, you may say source, but just knowing that there is a source, a being more powerful than you in your corner, can be so insanely settling to a nervous system. And this is what I've learned over the years, and the deeper I've dove into somatic healing and seen how transformative and breakthrough and life-changing it's been for my marriage and life. I have also learned that as powerful as these tools are, they really mean nothing if you're not connected to your God. It's like thinking of a phone. And I've mentioned this in one other episode with Justin Buwanimo on our conversation about money. But all of the somatic nervous system tools and healing are like giving you an upgrade to your phone, either giving you a brand new phone or updating all of the apps. It's like, whoa, this phone is so much better and it works so much smoother and faster. And this is amazing. But then you go long enough without connecting the phone into the charger and not plugging it into the outlet into the wall. It doesn't matter how updated and what version of that iPhone that you have, it's going to die if it's not connected to its source. So this is what I say too when it comes to clients learning nervous system tools and somatic practices. All of it's great, but it can, in the end, create more anxiety because it's this sense of just those tools alone. It's still up to me to make sure I'm pulling on the right tool, or resourcing in the right way, or what do I do in this moment? Like, it can still leave us with a sense of anxiety if we don't remember at the very core of our healing, the most potent power source we have is plugged into the source, into our God. And so what that looks like practically, at least for me, is I start my day. Lately, it's been prayer walks, however you like to connect with your God, whether it's like a journaling practice or praying out loud or walking and talking. For me, that feels very natural, very aligned, very organic and in flow. And I've been enjoying that so much. Just before answering emails or DMs or client messages, I'll just go out and I'll walk around the neighborhood. And I can't tell you how alive it makes me feel, like fully charged, fully plugged in, right? And filled up, like battery so full, where I'm talking to God about what's on my mind, what's bothering me, releasing what's weighing me down. I'm talking about what I'm so grateful for, and just romanticizing life to be able to love this one short life that we're given and all of the blessings in it. But I'm also walking by neighbors and seeing them, watering their plants or tending to their gardens or washing their car, walking their dog. And it just reminds me, whoa, there's like a whole world outside of my little bubble, especially me where I work from home. And it's me and a computer or me and clients all day long. It can feel very bubbled. So it just helps me to connect to my source in that way. And I tell you what, it doesn't matter what I'm feeling nervous about or mistrustful about. Even in this 2025, right, political climate, there's plenty of triggers when any of us open our social media lately for me to feel like, oh, my sense of safety and trust is rattled right now because of some reel I saw or the news I saw. And every time I go on that walk and just give all my cares to God, it seriously takes me like into this 5D reality and makes me realize and tap into and tune into the energy of what is real, which is the spiritual reality, which is God, which is love with a capital L. And so I always leave those prayer walks so freaking grateful I did that. And so these are essential, okay? When it comes to broken trust, it starts with ourselves, it starts with God, and Rebuilding trust in any relationship will complete by your partner responding to your newfound sense of self-trust with respect and curiosity. And these are the moments where it's like when you do this deep healing and you put your ducks in order, you go to yourself first, go to God first, your healing on this deep subconscious spiritual somatic level will either call him up or call him out. But either way, you win because you have stopped abandoning yourself. You have created this unshakable relationship with your own intuition where I'm now able to see, if there can be trust rebuilt between us because I trust myself. I've broken my husband's trust so many times, more than I can count in my relationship. One of the biggest ways is just with friends. I'm an open book. I'm very vulnerable. And so over the course of our marriage, I've been way too open about our struggles with people that he felt like, you know what, Becky, I wished you had kept my confidence more. The things that I'm going through and that I've shared with you, it makes me feel unsafe knowing you're just going to be telling your best friend. And so I've brushed that off in the past and seen that as him trying to keep me silent and not get support, or just laughed it off like, oh, come on, every girl tells her best friend everything. Like, whatever you share with me, the best friend knows. But I've really changed the way I see about that. I see that now. One, he does know there are very few select people that, we've really both decided together that they get the full story and they get to hear all the details so that I'm not alone, that we're not alone in getting support. But I've also really woken up to, I want to be my husband's biggest source of trust and confidence. And I've broken that so many times. And so we've had to have many repairing conversations where I let him know, hey, that stays between us. I just want to reiterate, this is something where it's just between us and you don't have to worry about me sharing it. Now, caveat there, asterisk, if it's like abuse or something like that, those are the moments where if your husband's telling you to keep that just between you guys, absolutely not. That's where you need to get support and not have that as be something that he's trying to control or keep you from getting help. That's more of a controlling, coercive, abusive tactic. But I'm just talking about things like if your husband's struggling with something, but he's working on it, or if he shares something in confidence with you, being a place where, you know that there's certain level of intimacy and privacy between you two. So that's kind of a tangent, but ultimately completing trust with your partner, right? It really starts, especially for my anxious attached girlies, with repairing with ourselves and seeing this is either going to call him up. It's going to bring out his respect and curiosity when you start to set boundaries, when you start to come home to yourself, when you start to move into a settled nervous system, and he's going to want to rise with that. That's a green flag. And if he doesn't, at least now there's this clarity that is, okay, it's been made abundantly clear that I've gone on this journey, that I'm on this path committed to authenticity, to trust, and I desire a relationship that is built on that, and he is not on the same page. And so now I have some clarity on what I want to do next. So I was talking with a client yesterday and today about this, and she is at this place in her marriage where it's been 20 years and many betrayals, a lot of infidelity, verbal abuse, and she is at this place where she's finally trying to decide for herself, do I want to stay, do I want to go? I have done the work to repair trust within myself, and I'm still, a work in progress, and I'm starting to invite him into that to see if he's open to rebuilding trust with me as well. So I want to give you a little insight into our conversation back and forth, just client messaging, so that you can have some practicals if this relates to you, because it relates to a lot of the women in my community. So this is what she said. She said, basically, there are some places that he has gone to where betrayals happened and they're very triggering for her, and her request has been, would you please not go to those places again, because for me it's very activating and a reminder of the betrayals. And what he's been doing is dismissing those and saying, you're trying to control me and I'm going to go anyway. And so she's learning a different way to trust herself, advocate for herself, speak in effective boundaries, not requests. And this is what it sounded like. So this is our conversation back and forth. She said, do you have any tips on how I can say something different to him? Because he feels controlled, and I know some of this is his fear of engulfment, yet I need to be responsible for what I'm bringing to the table. And I said, she gave me an example of what she texted him, and I said, I think that's great how you asked for clarity. From here on out, keep your communication short, clear, and kind. No more questioning or asking him to understand you, because she's done plenty of that, right? And he hasn't responded with curiosity and respect. So what I said moving forward is, what it might sound like is, hey, husband, what I want in our marriage is safety, trust, and mutual respect. If you care about this relationship, I need you to initiate a real conversation so we can find a win-win. If you decide to go to X place without talking it through together, it breaks my sense of trust and safety in us. She said, okay, it sounds good. I like that a lot. Really appreciate that. And then she said, what's a good way to respond when he defends and blame shifts this statement? I've said something similar many times and he collapses into self-pity, gaslighting, etc., claiming he never gets his way. I want to control him and I don't want to have any fun. I said, what you say in that case is, I'd love to have a conversation when you're ready to talk without defenses or blaming. If you truly care about me, you'll initiate that when you feel ready to chat. So anyway, went our separate ways. She comes back this morning and said, good morning, friend. Got lots to report in a good way. I used your script last night after my husband came home, and I said, what I want in a marriage is trust, safety, and mutual respect. He stared at me oddly, so I added, I'm sure you want that too. He nodded. So she's already sensing, because she's changing the dance, this is very new for her. He's never heard her talk like this. And so it definitely captured his attention. And then she went on to say to him, if you care about this relationship, you'll tell me beforehand when you're making plans. He said, what do you mean? First of all, that's very new for him. That's showing curiosity. Normally he shuts that down. He accuses her of being controlling. And what she said in response was, well, you said we didn't have to go to the fill in the blank place. I need you to tell me before you actually make plans. He said, okay. I said, what does okay mean? He said, I understand. She said, does I understand mean you agree, or you just heard what I said? He sat for a second, could tell I caught him off guard. He seemed confronted, and then he said, okay, I agree. I smiled softly to him and then said, are you sure? I don't want to twist your arm. And then he said more kindly, no, I agree. And I said, thank you. And I changed the subject. Short, simple, sweet. We don't have to talk about this forever. They moved on. She felt empowered. She felt proud of herself. And that's just an example of, she trusts herself enough to be able to speak these boundaries and to speak her truth. So I hope this helped. Obviously, there's so much more to talk about when it comes to trust, and there's so many unique variables that if you want further, more individualized support, shoot me a DM. Let me know you listened to this episode. I have deeper resources when it comes to rebuilding trust, and I love talking about this with people because it's where honestly so many women feel the most stuck and hopeless and depressed and anxious, and it does not have to be that way. So I love you. Thank you so much for listening to this. Share this with a friend who needs help repairing trust in her relationship, and I will talk to you soon.